This is Dream Power Radio, the place where your dreams turn into reality. Here is your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Hello, 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 and welcome to Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, the Dream Coach. This is a show where we talk about dreams, both daytime and nighttime dreams, and how you can use them to make the internal shift to a life you love. And I have to tell you, I don't usually talk about my dreams at the start of the show, mostly because they're usually not relevant to what the program is going to be about. But I had a dream last night I want to tell you about. In this dream, I was at a wedding venue, and I was given a sheet to look at that detailed the kind of services that they provided. Each item was in a box. When I looked at them, I said to myself, gee, that's not the way the service is supposed to go. They're missing some things here. When I looked at their food menu, I felt the same way. There was something missing. And, it made it it wasn't the sort of thing that I was to expect from this kind of a place. But then I looked around at an event that was going on, and all of the people were happy. And what I took from that dream was this: things don't have to be perfect. My life doesn't have to go the way that others would define as usual. But if I come at it with love and authenticity, not only will I be happy, but those around me or affected by me will be happy as well. And I bring this up now because my guest today, Edie Weinstein, is all about getting people to live full, satisfying, and happy lives, especially those people who have to overcome traumas and other unpleasant issues to get there. Edie is known as the Hug Lady and the Bliss Mistress, and has been speaking and writing about wellness and mental health for decades. She's the author of several works, including The Bliss Mistress Guide to Transforming the Ordinary into the Extraordinary. And I'm so happy she's joining us today on Dream Power Radio. Welcome, Edie.
Thank you. This is exciting. You were talking about dreams. That's one of my most favorite ways of processing life. I found, and as I'm sure you know, dreams are kind of a spillover from our day, the things that are going on, and that every aspect of the dream is part of the dreamer. So you might want to ask yourself, what do you order off the menu? Do you have to have what's specifically offered, or can you say, oh no, I really want to do this? So in the dream, you're the menu, you're the food, you're the wedding venue, you're the paper, all that stuff. So I have totally bizarre dreams, even more now. Since the pandemic has been going on than ever before. So there are times when I'm really glad to wake up.
Well, tell me, have your COVID dreams been unpleasant dreams, or have you had happy dreams as well?
Both. A lot of them have been about Nazis chasing me, about hiding, about getting lost. In the very beginning, I had one of the first COVID dream I had. Now, I don't have COVID, by the way, but in the time of COVID. One of the first dreams I had, I was in China. I have never been to China before and really don't have an interest in going. But there was a man there that didn't have a mask on, and he was bringing people together to celebrate, and nobody had masks on. I said, oh, that must mean we're going to get through this okay, ultimately okay. And back then, most of us thought, oh yeah, 2 weeks quarantine, everything will be fine. And some of us are still, while we're not totally on lockdown, we're still separating ourselves physically from other people. We're still wearing masks. We're still doing a lot of hand washing. Our lives I can't say ours, but my life in many ways has shrunk, but it's also gotten broader. And I'll explain about that in a minute. But that was my first dream. And then a dream that came after that, and this ties in with my work as a Hug Mobster, which is also what I'm called, that I dreamed that people could hug again. And in this dream, people were hugging back to back, or they were hugging front to back, like spooning, but we weren't yet hugging this way. And I thought, okay, that's hopeful. So as my dreams, as the time has worn on and my dreams have gotten more intense, I do lucid dreaming where I say, okay, if I'm not really, thrilled with the idea of being chased by Nazis, I'm going to wake up or I'm going to turn around and face them, which is what I did in some of the dreams. And, I use my dreams as fodder for everything that I do. Like, okay, what's this telling me? So, yeah, some of them have been happy.
Oh, yeah. Well, that's what my mission has been to get the world to understand how powerful their dreams could be when they pay attention to them. That's kind of what it's all about. But, as I said at the beginning, you're known as the hug lady or the hug mobster. Mm-hmm. What does the hug lady do when she's not allowed to hug?
Well, I've written on that topic and I just spoke at an interfaith community I'm part of. And it was called, What's a Hugger to Do When a Hugger Can't Hug? A little bit of background so people know where that name came from. Valentine's Day weekend, 2014, I brought a group of friends to 30th Street Station, which is a big train station in Philadelphia, for a free hugs flash mob. And I wanted people to understand that Valentine's Day is not just one day of the year, and that love isn't just something we celebrate between couples. It's for everybody. So there were a dozen of us that came, and at 12 o'clock, we unleashed ourselves on 30th Street Station, and we walked around with free hug signs, and we asked people if they'd like hugs. And it's all by consent. We didn't do any kamikaze, swoop by hugs with anybody. They had to say yes in order for us to hug them. And I estimate that within the hour's time that we did it, we hugged a few hundred people. The one that stands out to me is a gentleman who approached us and said he was an Iraq war vet and that he was the only survivor of his platoon and he had survivor's guilt. He had thought about ending his life. And he said, until I met you people, can I join you? So, of course, we were crying, excuse me, and we gave him his free hug sign. He was off to the races. And my thought was, wow, hugs save lives. I didn't realize how poignant that statement was till 5 months later when on the way home from the gym, I had a heart attack. I was 55 years old. I've been going to the gym 5 or 6 times a week, eating what I thought was a pretty healthy diet, but I was working 12 to 14-hour days as a therapist in an outpatient drug and alcohol rehab, sleeping maybe 5 or 6 hours a night, working also as a journalist, a minister, a speaker, all of those things were happening, and I was busy giving out, but not taking a whole lot in. So right after the heart attack, as I was doing cardiac rehab, I thought, I'm going to, walk through my little town of Doylestown, Pennsylvania. And I said, why don't I combine the hugging with the walking? Because hugs are heart friendly, not just cardiac friendly, or not just emotionally heart friendly, but cardiac friendly as well. And friends started calling us Hug Mobsters, like flash mob, hug mob. And I said, oh, mobsters, guns, drugs, I don't think so. I said, but what about Hug Mobsters Armed with Love? So one of our friends is an artist, and he was one of the people that was there originally. He drew, I forgot to bring it out with me here, but he drew a little heart with hands, and then the Hug Mobsters Armed with Love words on there. So since then, I've hugged in Philadelphia, New Jersey, Delaware, other parts of Pennsylvania, Virginia, Maryland, D.C. I've hugged in front of the White House. Not this past September, obviously, but the September before, by the Vietnam War Memorial. I've hugged in New York, in Oregon. In fact, this was another life-saving example of hugs. I was visiting friends in Portland, and I had just gotten out of the car, and I had my sign, and this man said, oh, I want a hug. He said, I've had a really rough week. A friend of mine just died of cancer, and another friend jumped off a bridge, and I'm thinking about joining her. And he said this hug made me decide to stick around. So that was helpful to know. And then the most enjoyable, most memorable was I hugged my way across Ireland, and that was phenomenal. My most memorable hug there was with a young man in Galway. There's a park called Ayers Square Park, and he was blowing these massive bubbles. and he had dreads down to here, and was multiply tattooed. And I hugged him, and my hair was, I don't know if you can see now, it's purple, but it was really vividly purple there. He says, "You come from the land of the purple marshmallow people." And I'm thinking, okay, was he smoking purple marshmallows? And I hugged him. I went on my way, and on my way back through the park, he says, come here. And I said, "What?" He says, "I've got patchouli oil on, and I want to get it on you." So he's rubbing his head up against me like a kitty cat. So at the end of last year, Hug Mobsters got a lot of media coverage. It was in the Philadelphia Inquirer, on Women's Day magazine, Women's World magazine. I was on our local NPR station, and I thought, oh, we're really getting some momentum here. And it's not about me, although I'm the founder of it. It's about the movement itself. And I didn't create the Free Hugs movement, but I'm glad to be on board with it. So I thought, okay, one experience is going to add on to the other, and I'm just going to keep riding this throughout next year. Well, COVID happened, and hugs were like screeching halt. And the biggest fear I had is, oh, what if we can never hug anybody again? And it was like, no. But then I realized that we are going to get through this, that we are going to be able to hug again in ways that are safe and healthy for us.
Oh, I know we are too. But in the meantime, how do you deal with the loss of that connection?
Well, like a lot of people, I live alone. I have wonderful, loving friends and family, but for the first 11 weeks, I did not touch another human being. If you can imagine that, somebody who's incredibly tactile, who not only hugs friends and family, but strangers on the street, and all of a sudden it was like, nothing. And it was like being in a vacuum. Now, I'm not prone to anxiety or depression, but as a result of that experience, I started feeling that. And I thought, is this what some of my clients are like, going through? Because I'm a therapist as well. And I said, all right, I need to be able to find a way to connect that may not involve touch at the moment. So I had, I did Zoom calls with people. I would text, different friends to stay in touch with them, like literally emotionally staying in touch with them. But to handle the physical aspect of lack of touch, I would hug pillows. I would put a heating pad on. What else would I do? Self-massage, Reiki. For those who don't know, it's an energy healing modality. What else? Oh, teddy bears. I'd snuggle with teddy bears. I'd hug trees. I would, when I would take a shower, I would like really feel the lather, be very mindful of it, put on lotion, those kind of things. The hardest part for me was that I have a now 9-month-old grandson. He was born in January. Mm-hmm. So for the first month and a half of his life, I was one of his caregivers. My daughter-in-law's parents and sister and I were his, the supplemental village that helped take care of Dean in the first month and a half of his life. And then that came to a screeching halt. And that was the hardest part, was not being around my son and daughter-in-law and the baby. So I would send them videos, send him a video every morning. We would do FaceTime. And I think it was around Mother's Day, I went over there, I think it was on Mother's Day, and my son said, okay, he gave me an N95 mask because he uses them for his job. He said, you got to put hand sanitizer on everywhere. And then I'm going to wrap you in a blanket, and then you can hold the baby. So I cried, of course. And then a week later, he called me. He said, do you have clients later this afternoon? I said, yeah, I've got an hour. Why are you asking? He said, well, I'm going to come over and mow your lawn, and I don't want to have it be too noisy when you're talking to your clients. So he said, okay, I'll see you, whatever. And I figured he's not coming alone. He's bringing Lauren and the baby. So he rings the doorbell. I open the door. He goes, here, and he hands me the baby. And I said, no mask. He said, look, you haven't gone anywhere. You don't spend time with anybody. I work from home doing telehealth. So it was just, So now I'm back there 4 mornings a week. My daughter-in-law is a teacher. She teaches from home. My son goes out to work. So I just, I'm in baby heaven, baby bliss. Do you have children or grandchildren?
I have children and I have grandchildren.
Okay, so that babies, grandbabies are the bestest. Not that children aren't, but there's just a special bond between a grandparent and a grandchild.
Oh, there is. I want to get into this more, but we're going to take a short break now.
Mm-hmm.
We are speaking about hugging and joy with Edie Weinstein, and we'll be right back. Everybody has a dark side. What lies within yours? Join Darkwood Tarot author and head witch in charge, Sasha Graham, for a very special virtual tarot masterclass, Illuminating the Shadow. This live, full-day experiential workshop will guide you to break out of your tarot comfort zone and harness the latent power that resides within your innermost self. Register now to experience all the fun and wisdom. Go to tarotpalooza.com. That's TAROTPALOOZA.com.
Welcome back to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman.
Yes, welcome back to Dream Power Radio. I'm your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman, and we're speaking about hugs and connection and how to find joy with Edie Weinstein. And Edie, we were talking about hugging, and I think it just shows the need for that kind of that physical connection that we probably took for granted before this pandemic got to us.
Yeah, I think people have skin hunger, which is just as important to meet as food hunger, because skin is our single largest organ. So when people are deprived of nurturing touch by consent, they fail to thrive. Just like babies, if they're not given enough love and attention, adults do too. Among people that are socially isolated, even before this, there's higher rates of depression, anxiety, suicidality, addiction. So hugs are not a cure-all, but they certainly go a long way to help people get through all of that.
Yes.
So I encourage people. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was going to say that I wanted to get into that because since for large degree not able to have that connection, it's led to a lot of people being prone to depression or having the loneliness get to them. So what suggestions do you have for them to, regain a sense of connection?
Well, first of all, I encourage them to stay in touch however they can with the people in their lives. I remember when this all started was around Passover. So some of my friends gathered together and we did a Zoom Seder. So, people have been having brunch and dinner together online. People have been having dates online. So activities that you would normally do can be done through technology as well. It's not the same, but it's, pretty close. One of the other things that I did prior to, as a friend of mine says, in the before times, was a workshop called Cuddle Party. And that's, a workshop for adults that focuses on boundary setting, communication, and safe, nurturing, non-sexual, platonic touch by consent. So I was doing them at least once a month, sometimes twice a month. And what people will do is get together in PJs, sweats or yoga clothes, blankets on the floor, pillows, teddy bears, and there'd be a whole workshop around nurturing touch. And I had to stop that. I've been doing it since 2005, I think. Yeah. So when I started doing them. So for a few months, I was doing virtual cuddle parties, which may sound bizarre because couldn't touch anybody. But we did self-massage, hugging, we did meditations, we did communication and boundary setting exercises around the concept of touch. And it wasn't specifically about the touch that appealed to people. It was, I see you. I'm not here in my own little cave, because a lot of the people that came to it live alone, or they have, if they're in a relationship with somebody, that their partner might be in a high risk job, so they didn't see each other. So that's one way to stay in contact. Like a lot of spiritual services are now online. So if you belong to a spiritual community, you can go to a service, whether it's a church, a synagogue, a temple, a mosque. You can pray with other people from a distance. And the cool thing about it is you don't have to get dressed. You don't have to put shoes on. You go in your PJs if you want. So that way people know they are not alone. Because the reality is this is something the entire world is going through together. So for some people, there's a comfort in that, like, okay, this is just not my struggle by myself. Everybody is challenged with this. There isn't a human being on this planet that this is not impacting in one way or another.
Yeah, I know. Just the knowledge of that is, in its own way, kind of comforting. So if you are still feeling that, sense of loss, aside from being on some sort of social connection, what else could somebody do?
If you have people in your life that you're fairly certain have been adhering to safety protocols, go visit them. I visit friends, like I have my dear friend, my 86-year-old mentor, Dr. Yvonne Kay, lives alone, and we have our front porch visits. I go over there and, I sit with her. And I have a cousin that I visit. We sit like 20 feet away, and her dog was the conduit between us. So if there are animals in your life, you can do that. If there are people that you're used to spending time with at a socially distanced gathering, you can do that. This year, for the high holidays, for those who aren't Jewish, on Yom Kippur, people fast, and then there's a break the fast dinner. My best friend usually hosts it, and normally it's inside. Well, she said this year we're still going to do it, but it's going to be in the backyard. And it was under the supervision of a cousin of theirs, who's a doctor. So Harris gave us suggestions. Okay, you do this, do that. And he and his family were there. So we all wore masks until it was time to eat. We sat at a distance from each other at the different tables. We didn't go in the house. We were still able to do something normal in an abnormal situation. So as much as you can from your old life, bring that into your life now. Be of service. There are people that are looking for mentors. They're looking for peer counselors. If you're not in therapy and you think it would benefit you, find a good therapist. If you are in therapy, continue with that. People need a safe space to be able to express this huge grief that we're all experiencing together. If you've lost a loved one, whether it's through COVID or that you couldn't be with them at the end because of COVID, seek out the services of a grief counselor or a grief support group. If you've got an addiction issue, the addiction doesn't go away because we're quarantined. Find a 12-step meeting to go to or some kind of support meeting to go to, because we need that kind of human connection no matter what. So I think those are things that I do myself and that I suggest that other people do as well.
Well, in normal times, or say in the pre-COVID time, your specialty was in helping people find the magic in their lives. Mm-hmm. So we've talked about, how to get away from, the negative feelings, but what are some of the other ways that we can fill ourselves up with joy?
Well, first of all, decide for yourself what lights you up from the inside and turns you into a human sparkler. That's what I encourage people to do. And for some people, it's art. For some people, it's music. Some people, it's meditation, yoga, gardening, dancing, drumming. What else? Painting, sculpting, baking, whatever your creative outlet is, do that, because that's going to fill you up. Things that bring you joy. I encourage people to get out in nature, no matter where you are, whether it's a park or your own yard. Hug trees. They seem to really like it. And now when I take walks, I experience what I call protective amnesia, which is, okay, it's a gorgeous day. The sun is shining. The sky is blue. The birds are tweeting. People are dying. People are struggling. But for a little bit, I forget. So I encourage people to practice that protective amnesia. Find some little pocket, some little moment of your day when you're fully present to here and now. I'm here, I'm alive. I also encourage people, if they have a spiritual practice, to pray. And whatever that prayer is to you, I pray all day long. And it's just, okay, help me find the courage, the strength, the wisdom, whatever it is to get me through this moment. As a therapist, I need to be on. I need to be available to my clients to hold space for their challenges and their losses and their grief and their fear. Do the best you can not to get sucked into the fear. Don't feed the fear. And if you are scared, just say, all right, what can I do to comfort myself? So I encourage people to comfort themselves in healthy ways. Like, don't overindulge in food and alcohol and substances, but find other ways to comfort yourself that doesn't involve harm in any way. I encourage people to hug themselves and rock. I encourage people to remember somebody in their lives when they were a child, perhaps, that loved them enough to hold not hold their pain, but hold them in their pain. Think about the people that loved you into the person that you are now. A couple of years ago, more than a couple, maybe 10, 15 years ago, I was part of this day called the Global Mala. And for those that don't know, mala beads are the Buddhist prayer beads. There are 108 of them. And the idea was to do some kind of ritual around that. So I sat out in nature and I counted, for each one of the beads, I thought of somebody in my life that made a difference, for better or for worse. And I sent them a blessing. So the first year I went around 108 beads. The second or third year that I did it, I went around 3 times. So think about all the people that made a difference in your life. And what I thought about was, okay, this person introduced me to that one. So, okay, I'm going to think about that person next. And then I'm going to think about, okay, well, who are my mentors? Who are my teachers, my guides? Who are my go-to people now? Who matters most in the world to me? And focus on that. I say a prayer of protection for everybody in my life. And the way that I say it is, surround the people that I know and love, and the people they know and love, and people they know and love, and so on and so on. So it's exponentially growing. That gives me comfort. And when I get scared, I think about that. I think about the ancestors. I'm an adult orphan. My dad died in 2008. My mom died in 2010. So I talk to them a lot. I talk to them all throughout the day. And that brings me comfort. I think about my husband, who died almost 22 years ago. He's an ancestor now, even though he's not my ancestor, but he's my son's, ancestor, my grandson. So I think about him. I have a dear friend that died almost 2 years ago, Andrea. I think about her. Do that. Journal. If you like writing, write in your journal. If you like listening to music, do a Spotify playlist. My favorite radio station is one that anybody could get anywhere in the world. It's called WXPN, and online it's xpn.org, and it's every kind of music imaginable. So I listen to that in the mornings. I forget what time it is, but they have something they call it an XP Zen. So like it's a relaxing song to help people get through the day. It may seem like this is the toughest time in history, but you think back on the previous generations. What was it like to live in the time of Nazi Germany? What was it like to live in a time where Japanese Americans were imprisoned for being Japanese origin? Think of it, the riots during the civil rights movement. And we survived that as a nation and a world, and we're going to survive this too. But this is the toughest thing that many of us have ever experienced.
Every generation has their own event that defines them and tragedies that they have to go through. Well, Edie, you've given us so much wonderful advice. I just have time for one final question, which is, how can people find out more about you and your work?
Thank you. I have a website. It's www.opti-mystical.com. And where that name came from was I had a dream that, again, I have a lot of dreams where messages come through, and the voice said, you're not just an optimist, you're an optimistic who sees the world through the eyes of possibility. So that's my website. There's a form on there that people can make requests for whatever services I offer. And I'm on Facebook under Edie Weinstein, EDIEWEINSTEIN. That's the place that I'm the most visible in the world. So it's been an honor to be here. So find a way to bring pleasure to your life as well.
Oh, well, I'm sure we all will. Thank you so much for being on Dream Power Radio today.
My pleasure.
We've been speaking with the Bliss Mistress, Edie Weinstein. I hope you've enjoyed today's program. Until next time, this is Debbie Spector-Weissman saying, sweet dreams, everybody.
You've been listening to Dream Power Radio with your host, Debbie Spector-Weissman. For more information on Debbie or to sign up for her newsletter, go to dreampowerradio.com. This has been Dream Power Radio on the amazing Women and Men of Power Network, the world's leading positive programming network, powered by Raven International.